Hi everyone, it's Nina. Today we're on the short video of my digital watercolor beginner series. In this one, I'll focus on how to add shadows. I'm going to use only 3 watercolor brushes in clipstudiopaint. If you're curious about the basics of these brushes, I've explained them in detail in previous videos, so feel free to check this out. Okay, are you ready? Let's get started. I mostly use this flat brush for shading. This is just my personal approach, but I like to separate shadows into different types. This first one is based on the light source. Basically, it's about deciding where the light is coming from and adding general shadows. For today's image, let's say the light is coming from the right side of the screen. I'll add shadowing on this side. Now, some of you might be thinking, but isn't that color a bit off? No worries. Let's set up a mask layer and then we can adjust the colors here. The shadow layer painted with the flat brush serves as a base layer, and then I use the rough wash on a clipped mask layer to add color. I soften that color with the texture blender, creating this kind of effect. It's easy. Now I'm just adding colors I like. Personally, I tend to go with the purples or blues for shadows. Of course, the shadow color can totally change depending on the final look you're aiming for. For this piece, I'm going for a bluish, purplish tone that I think suits this sky cloud well. If the flat brush strokes go beyond the edges, you can easily erase them clearly with the eraser or use it to create a gradient effect. Either way works well. Next, I'm adding shadow of the hair. Splitting layers here is super useful. You can use a normal layer or you can switch to multiple mode. It's really up to your preference. Here, I'm clipping a mask layer again and applying a gradient. Using a single color works fine too, but if you have a different light source, making the layer to add a gradient makes it feel more like watercolor and gives a smoother result. Now let's move on to adding shadows for facial contours. I saved this step for last because it's easier once you've established the light source. With the main light source set, adding facial shadows becomes much easier and more natural looking, at least for me. For these facial shadows, they shouldn't be super defined, so I'll blend them out as I go. Softens the effect, giving a more realistic feel. Now only the face has these detailed shadows right now, so it does look a bit intense. But we'll adjust the rest later. You can also layer more color, like on the lips to add depth, which will give it a richer finish. And we repeat this process blending, erasing, adding shadow to build up clouds look with 3 shadow layers. The light source shadow layer, the hair shadow, and then the facial contour shadows. By the way, here's one of the great things about mask layers. You can easily adjust the colors later. Personally, I feel like relying on color adjustment tools can to prevent you from really developing a sense for color. With mask layers, you're actually selecting and adjusting colors yourself, which I think is better. And here's one handy tip. If you select transparent color with the rough watercolor brush, you can actually erase areas with a watercolor effect. Maybe you might already know these things, but I didn't. I didn't know that. I realized it recently. It's very great because the eraser gives that rough wash watercolor texture. If you go overboard or if you want to soften some areas without using the eraser, this method gives you a nice watercolor effect as you go. Anyway, to sum up today's shading technique. Okay, and when adding shadows, I use the flat brush. When adding color on the mask layer, I switch to the rough wash watercolor brush. And for gradients, I use the texture blender. It's really just a repetition of these steps. For my own approach, I typically separate shadow layers into 2 or 3, depending on the type of shadow I'm working with. That's all about it. So now we're just adding a few final touches to the face contours and shadows, refining small areas in the hair. Then we finish with some highlight. And there you go, all done. This piece took about 40 minutes to complete. So, what do you think? Watercolor can seem tricky, but if you can do it digitally, maybe that makes it a bit easier to try, right? So, feel free to give it a shot. I'm very happy if I could inspire someone. Okay, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Looking forward to seeing you in the next video. See you then. Have a great drawing day. Bye bye.